Okay, hello, good evening everyone. Lovely to see so many people here tonight, and sure it's going to be another great Kent Freedom Movement night with Ceylon from Get Out of Debt Free. Just a little announcement before I introduce Ceylon, and that is, I'm sure most of you are aware of the Robert Greene story, where he's been jailed for a year for a breach of the peace, you know, basically trying to expose paedophiles up in Scotland, and the lovely system that we live in seems to think that that's an offence and doesn't bother investigating the paedophiles. You know, it's really good, isn't it? The police should be so proud of their job. There is going to be an event where we're going to go up to Aberdeen. Lots of people are going to go up to Aberdeen and give out leaflets on the streets of Aberdeen to let people know what is going on up there, because people should be absolutely outraged by this, and they're not being told because there's a blackout in our media, or what is an excuse for a media, of course. The Kent Freedom Movement will be running a coach or a bus up there. We don't know what the dates are yet, they're not confirmed, so please keep an eye on the website. Just goes through a few basic things. No questions. Ceylon's going to do it in 2 sections, and the first part is going to be mainly about money, and then it's going to talk about health a bit later. So we will have questions probably in about 3/4 of an hour. We'll have some questions, then we'll have a break, and then Ceylon will come back to a second bit, and then we'll have some questions at the end. So try not to upset the flow, because we like to keep it going nice and smoothly. And he probably will, he may well answer your questions anyway, so just save them until the end. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ceylon from Get Out of Debt Free.
Thank you guys, and Bill. Not used to using the mic, so if it goes a bit funny, just bear with me or shout up, it's not working right. Right, first thing on the agenda, as if I had one. Who in here still pays a TV licence? Come and get this. This is a copy of a letter I received from the BBC after I sent them a denial of access. Come and have a look at it, pass it round, all have a look, see what it says. Basically, it says, we're not going to write to you for 2 years, we're not going to send anyone to visit you for 2 years, then we might send a letter to see if your licensing needs may have changed. I can tell you now, they won't have. I'm going to start on a subject which does seem to scare a lot of people. I understand why. Bailiffs. Bailiffs, particularly private bailiffs, this is the likes of council tax or parking tickets. They're private bailiffs because for parking tickets, if you park somewhere, the council will apparently issue you with a parking ticket fine, and totally illegal and unlawful under the Bill of Rights Act 1688-89, where section 12 of part 2 states, promises of any fines or forfeitures before being taken to court are illegal and void. So they're actually breaking their own legislation there, and it's a statutory act, which means it can't be repealed, because they've tried. So, parking tickets are illegal. When I first started getting my parking tickets and playing the game, I just used to write refuse for cause across here, a few other bits and bobs, and I'd get a letter back saying, there's been a mistake, the ticket was issued incorrectly, and don't use this as precedence and all that sort of rubbish. I know exactly why they sent it back, because I'd refused their offer of a contract. And under contract law, you get 72 hours, 3 days, to reject any contract. And a parking ticket is an offer of a contract. So you can absolutely refuse it. It got to the point then when the council started ignoring contract law and just sending it to the Northampton Bulk Centre. For those that don't know, the Northampton Bulk Centre is not a court, it has no judges, has no magistrates, none of the staff are trained in law, But apparently, they issue CCJs. And yet, there's nobody there trained in law. Well, to me that sounds like fraud. That's just me though. Then what they do, they'll pass it on to a bailiff. Something like this, Equita. This is the one we use in Nottingham for parking tickets. I'll just read through a few of them. That's just the latest one. Removal of goods, nothing much. Another removal of goods. Penalty charge notice, removal notice. This was dated the 10th of the 8th, 2011. Another removal notice. 24-hour removal notice. Notice of intent. This was the good one. Final demand. I won't be getting any more then. That was dated 29th of September. Bailiff removal. Take formal notice. Removal of goods. Warning notice. Oh, and there's one there. Auction notice. Quite a few there, I think you'll agree.
I don't mean to interrupt you, sorry, it sounds a little loud, but I can turn the volume down.
Well, if you can hear me anyway, I don't open all these letters that I get from Equita.
That's just last week.
That's how much power they've got. I've never had them ever turn up at my door once. I've never had them turn up at the door once, and simply I pointed out that they were acting illegally and fraudulently anyway, and if they did knowingly continue with this, they would also be in the case that's coming for fraud. And I issued them with a denial of access, and as you can see from the letter that's going round, it gets the same response. I did get one letter pushed through, well, not pushed through the door, it was delivered. It said, our removal team was in your area today, but you weren't in. Strangely enough, it was posted by the postman, because they don't know if I've got cameras up or not, and they didn't step foot on the property, because I will take them to court for £5,000 for trespass, and they know it, I've told them. So, hopefully, there's nobody scared of bailiffs. Now that's to do with parking tickets. Let's just explain about council tax as well. I'm sure a lot of you know, but for those that don't, you stop paying your council tax and you'll get a summons. Now this summons isn't issued by a court, it's issued by the council. Totally fraudulent. Council isn't a court, it can't issue summons, but they've got a private agreement with the court where they can pretend to be the court and pretend to issue summons. Then they want you to go to court. Well, they don't. They want you not to go to court so they can just find it up against you anyway. But they hire the room out, they pay the magistrates, they pay the clerk of the justice, and everything that goes off in that room is a private paper shuffling act. There's no law behind it whatsoever. Then they'll issue a liability order, and I'll come back to the parking tickets as well in a bit because it's to do with exactly this. They then issue a liability order claiming that you've done something wrong. Then they'll pass it on to a bailiff. Well, I told you how to deal with bailiffs, and the reason that this works is because they're private bailiffs. They're not court bailiffs. They'll tell you they're court bailiffs, but they're private bailiffs. Private bailiffs have no power. A court bailiff would look at their so-called warrants, see they're not signed, and go, I ain't touching that, that's not legal. So, that's council tax and parking tickets are both illegal, and they both use private bailiffs because a court bailiff wouldn't entertain them. Any questions on that before I move on?
I've had lots of letters from Equita as well, and had bailiffs arriving for parking tickets, nothing dramatic but parking tickets, and have them sort of park their vans across either my factory or my drive, so I can't move in and out, sort of hampering my business or hampering me getting out of the house.
Well, that's a common law offence.
Fine, I didn't know that, but so if that happened to me again, I could just simply say to them, move out of the way, I'll still... You know,
Yeah.
What do I do? What would I do in that instance?
Fire hazard.
Yeah. That's a good one. I'd keep one there just for that.
But they do arrive, from Equita, they do arrive, and they do have people who, like ex-servicemen or whatever, and just sit there and say, try and intimidate you.
Yeah,
and say,
yeah.
this, that, and the other.
Again, denial of access, I've never had anyone turn up, ever. And as you can see with the letter that's going around, the BBC know that the denial of access is a lawful document that you are lawfully withdrawing their implied right of access to your property.
It's a revocable licence, and it says under legal terms.
There was another question somewhere over there.
Do private bailiffs
come with the police?
No. You can call the police, or you can call the police. If you've got a denial of access up, and they're on your property, you can get the police to arrest them, or you can arrest them yourself. They're breaking the law. Arrest them. Common law. Citizen's arrest. Which is what I would do if one ever turned up at my place. Not that they ever did, but yeah, you can absolutely arrest them and hold them until the police come and take them away. Anything else on that subject?
Is that your letter then, your denial of access letter?
That's the version I use, yeah. Most important thing is have a fee schedule on it, because if you're denying someone access without a fee schedule and they step on your property, well, you haven't said there's going to be any penalty.
So what stage did you send it with the parking tickets?
I send it, as soon as they contact me, I send them that off with a letter explaining how fraudulently they're acting. Something I came across recently, I don't know if you understand why any loan that you take out isn't lawful. Because one of the things I get asked is, well, if you've loaned it, you should pay it back. Absolutely, I agree. If you've loaned it, you should pay it back. But you don't loan anything from a bank. You go to a bank, and they'll get you to fill out a loan agreement. When they get you to fill it out, it has the numbers in writing and letters, and then when it gets you to sign it. As soon as you sign that document, it changes from a loan agreement into a promissory note, which the bank then sells. So that's £10,000 that you just think you've just loaned. You actually created it. You are the creditor. You create that money. One of the things that a lot don't understand is that all the letters, for instance, that we use, and all documents have two sides, the left and the right-hand side. Does anyone know the difference between the two? Yeah. The left-hand side is the debtor side. The right-hand side is the creditor side. Now, when you were taught at school, you were taught to put your name and address on the right-hand side and sign on the left-hand side. So you put your name and address as the creditor, what you were taught to sign as the debtor. Now, this is a copy of a loan agreement. I'm not letting you see this because it's got some personal information on, but you'll notice I've signed it on the right-hand side. The ones that put this document together knew all about the fact that there's a creditor side and a debtor side. It's not a mistake. There's my signature on the right-hand side. So we don't owe anyone any money. The reason they use an agreement is because they don't have to tell you what I've just told you there. Because if it was a contract, they would have to tell you, yeah, as soon as you sign that, it turns into a promissory note, which we then monetize, pretend to put the money in your account that you just created, and we sell it on. And if you want to check this out, go down the bank. Ask them to see your original agreement. And then you'll get, we can't find it, we've lost it, we've misplaced it. These are the guys you're putting in charge to look after your money, and they can't even find the agreement that they say you owe money from. Well, they can't find it because they sold it. Anything on that before we move on to the letter side of things?
And who do they sell the agreement to?
They securitise it and sell it as a bond on the stock market.
Is it true that the same applies to your mortgage?
Yes. In fact, the mortgage, I'll just touch on this. I don't want to get too much into it. It's very complicated, and there's a lot of people with far more intellect about this subject that know a lot more. But I'll briefly explain how you were scammed when you went to get your mortgage. You went into the bank, he says, oh, I've got this house, £100,000, I'd like to buy it, mortgage. They go, yeah, sure, fill out this agreement. What a shock, an agreement. So you fill out the agreement, £100,000, there you go, you've just created it, well done. Now then, here's where the scam comes. They then get to fill out another document, which means that you are using the house that you just bought as collateral for the loan of the money that you created in the first place. Now, the reason I quantify this is they could not let you use that house as collateral for that loan unless you already owned it outright, free of all encumbrances, which means there's no debt on it. You made the money, you created the money, you owned the house, then they tricked you into using the house, the actual bricks and mortar, as collateral for the loan that you created. Does that answer your question? Here's an interesting one. This was Buchanan, Clark and Wells, 20 24th of January 2011. Does everyone understand what we do with the letters? Right, well,
Go through.
basically, we have 3 letters that we send off to someone that claims you owe them some money. And if it's Buchanan, Clark and Wells or any debt collector, well, the debt's already been paid anyway. Under the Bills of Exchange Act, 1882 section 43 clearly states that once a debt is paid, it's paid. And if they've paid your debt to the bank, then your debt's gone. You don't owe it anyway. They're third-party interlopers. They've got no first-hand knowledge or anything. They don't know nothing about it. But they rely on people's stupidity, and we have been pretty stupid in the past. In fact, there's a legal maxim goes something like, let he who be fooled, be fooled. They're basically laughing at you saying, if you're stupid enough to be fooled, serves you right. So what we do, we send a letter, basically acknowledging the letter they sent to us, and we ask them to provide proof that we actually owe anything. And the proof we're looking for is a contract signed by both parties, therefore binding both parties. Of course, no contract ever exists because they use agreements, because they don't have to tell you what's really going off. We ask them for a few other bits and bobs, hand-signed invoice, and most importantly at the end we say, and if you can prove that I actually owe you anything, I will be happy to pay it in full. This removes any controversy. There's no dispute. You prove that I owe you and I'll pay you. That's fair enough, I'm sure you'd all agree. If someone said that to you and you could prove it, you'd pay. And that's what we do. And of course, they were right back saying it's a US law, it doesn't exist in this country. I even had one, I forget, it's in here somewhere. I've got another file like this, Tone, by the way, but you can only bring one at a time, and this is the most up-to-date one. Well, I've got another file, which is my new one, because this one's too full now. So, we just ask them to prove we owe the debt, and we give them 10 days to do so. And they'll come out with all sorts of rubbish. The best I've had is after letter 1, I get a letter saying, we're no longer dealing with this. You know, we know what's coming, we know you know what your game is, we're out of here. And then they reply to letter 1 and 2. And then letter 2 is virtually identical to letter 1, except because we're nice, loving beings, we give them 10 more days after we send the first letter. We give them 10 days to respond, and if they don't give you what you ask for, whatever their response is classed as a non-response. They haven't responded to you. Then you send letter 2 saying, you know, we wrote to you on blah blah 10 days ago, you didn't respond, because I'm a nice guy, I'm going to give you a further 10 days to get yourself out of the shit and sort things out. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. This one carried on, so I billed them. This bill, £11,014,000. I'm getting paid for that soon. They carried on, you know, we're not going to pay your bill, blah blah blah. And, oh, strangely enough, it's now changed to Geoffrey Parker Bourne Solicitors. Or, as I like to call them, debt collectors, because that's what majority of solicitors are, just debt collectors, but using that scary word, solicitors. This is notice of pending legal action. Well, you can guess what I did. Letter 1. Letter 2. Oh, they responded. What they say? Thank you for your letter, the contents of which have been noted. The papers relating to this matter are current with our client, Debt Recovery Agents BCW PLC, and we are referring your letters to them for investigation. Please contact our client directly in this regard, Buchanan, Clark and Wells, blah blah blah, usual crap. And I continue with letter 3. And I get a letter back from them, referring to the previous letter. We wrote to you on 21st of April 2011, copy attached, for ease of reference, to explain that we are currently not instructed in this matter and that the papers are with our client. This is a solicitor that after letter 2 has gone, I ain't doing with it. What you've got in your paperwork is absolutely legal. I know it, and I know if I try to take this anywhere, I'm going to end up in shit. I'm out of it. Don't want nothing to do with it. That was the end of that. So that was a debt collector and a solicitor. Oh, passed to NCO then. Letter 1, letter 2. Oh, passed to Scott Call. Finish with letter 3, start letter 1 with Scott Call. Letter from Scott Call. Please find enclosed paperwork relating to the account we are no longer dealing with. Must be doing something right here, I reckon. Letter 3, and that went out 23rd of September 2011. Last I heard of them. it might stay quiet for 6 months and they might pass it on to somebody else. And each time they pass it on, it's worth less and less. Originally, they'll buy it for something like 10 pence in the pound, and then each time it gets sold on, it gets sold on for less. So the last one that gets it might be paying a penny in the pound. So they usually will go after you the most because it's worth more to them. If you owe 10 grand, they pay you a couple of pounds for it. It's worth them chasing you and sending you scary, threatening letters. And they rely on the fact that people, a lot, don't know. But thanks to the man in this room, for instance, there's far more people waking up and realise that we are living in a totally fraudulent system. Now, the companies I've dealt with cover everything. And even some contracts, but the contracts were flawed as well. We'll go right back to the bottom here. Oh, that's the water. Yeah, don't pay water. Don't pay TV licence. We've got an Asda card. That was just over 3 grand. A Cabot, an Apex for 7. Son-in-law's New Look catalogue. Barclays. Vodafone. That's interesting, that one. I had a contract with them that I told them I was finishing. And they phoned up on the day that the contract ran out and said, this was about 10 o'clock in the morning, said they spoke to somebody, they didn't speak to me. They said they spoke to somebody and left a note saying that if I didn't reply by midday, the contract would roll over. Totally fraudulent again, but, you know, I just like to play with them. Orange, they, we moved house and there was no signal. We kept telling them, complaining, until we just said, right, we're not paying you anymore. So, standard letters dealt with them. It went to BCW, Jeffrey Parker Bourne, NCO, Scott Call, Virgin, another one. They tried to rip me off. Well, they tried. And then it's back to some of the Equita letters. I think these ones, which ones is it? This is the one. After a while, we changed the owner of the car. We changed it from our last name, and first name, last name, to last name, family, trust. Basically, put the car in a trust. And you can do that, just write to the DVLA, new owner, either your last name, family trust, or anything you want. Any sort of name, as long as you have it in the trust. Then first time I actually got a letter from Equita that was actually from an alleged bailiff with his name and number on. I called him up and asked him, did he know that we'd issued his company with a denial of access with a £5,000 fee schedule? No, he said. Oh, I just thought I'd let you know, because I don't want you to lose any money, because if you step on my property, you will be losing some money. The next letter I got was back to, as soon as I find it, that is, signed by bailiff manager. All these letters here are all signed by bailiff manager. No one wants to take liability for the fraudulent act they are doing. They're all committing fraud, absolutely provable. No one wants to take that responsibility for it. Right, that brings us up to date. Do we have any questions? Oh, if anyone actually wants to see, not up close, this is the letter I sent to the water board. It's a covering notice explaining how I'm accepting their bill for value, and I print my own promissory note off and send that to them, along with, of course, the bank giro credit slip. And in this notice, I basically say to them, I'm accepting your bill for value. If you all the bits and bobs you need to do it, this is on the bank giro credit slip at the bottom. I send them a covering letter and a promissory note for £10 more than the bill actually is. And the reason for this, in this notice, I basically explain what I'm doing, and I point out, Lord Denning has said that a promissory note is a perfectly acceptable species of money and should be treated as cash, and so of the FSA. But I give them a get out. I say to them, in the covering note, if you don't agree with this method of payment, simply return the bank giro credit slip and the promissory note, and we'll come to some other agreement. That's fair enough, isn't it? But is any of you wouldn't take me up on that deal? Yeah, I bet. Right, never had a bank giro credit slip or a promissory note returned. 2 reasons. First one being, discovered that any company with more than £2 million worth of assets can cash a promissory note. So to start off with, they're cashing them anyway. So they're getting paid twice, which they do anyway, because they also send a bank giro credit slip off to a clearinghouse in Europe, and they'll get paid for it again. So they get paid twice anyway. So the way I do it, they're still getting paid twice. In fact, this is the way it started off. It was meant to be like this. Everything was meant to be free. But there was some lacking in sort of intellect that started sending checks off, and they go, these citizens are paying twice. In fact, they kept it on from there. So it's like, we've got ourselves to blame for that. Does anyone wants to talk about that particular subject?
Just want to ask you, saying about the £2 million subject.
Assets.
Yeah. What evidence is there to prove that that's the case?
The bank account's got more than that in. I mean, that's Seven Choke Water I'm dealing with.
If they can cash from, what evidence backs that up that they can do that?
It was discovered by Michael Upanicia during his research, as he was told by an investment bank that if any company or private being has that amount of money or assets of that value in their account, they can cash promissory notes. And this was told by a banker.
Yeah.
The one thing, just going back to the letters briefly, is we put by and colon before we sign. Now, if you've not seen David Sidney Rideout, he talks all about that and other things. He basically explains that 20 years ago, a head banker told him he never signs anything without putting by colon before his signature. And the reason for that is it means I'm not liable or responsible for anything on here. You're not liable. That sounds good. I like non-liability. Right. Any questions on that? This is the question time.
Sorry, Ceylon.
Just this one first.
Sorry, Ceylon. Would we find out that bicolon, is that on your website?
It's on all the template letters, and also if you search, because they did take his videos down at one point. David Sidney Rideout, he's got a video out. Even if you just watch the first one, it's half an hour long, and it explains all about the bicolon and with the autograph that we put there, and how you sign, because I don't know if you've all seen this, but the way we do the documents is we put stamps at the top and bottom. That's my seal, my thumbprint. The top one has with the autograph, and then signed bicolon signature, my thumbprint, and dated underneath it. The bottom one, above it has seal, and then again my signature, bicolon, signed across the stamp and thumbprint, copy claim, and the date again, and on the back, same thing again, except it's a lot easier, thumbprint, bicolon, signature, date. But you'll also notice I've got the recorded delivery notices on the front and back. I keep the original document and photocopy both sides, and then send them the photocopy.
Brilliant, thank you.
That's a question from the back there.
Yeah.
We'll just give them the mic.
There's a mic coming.
There's a mic coming.
Hello?
Yeah.
I got a bill today, funny enough, from Viola. I've ignored all their requests for payment. I don't have a contract with them.
Who from? And what was it for?
For water company.
Oh, right, yeah.
I live in a tower block. I called them up. That's how they got my actual name. And asked them how come I owe them £490 odd in my flat. The guy who lived above me has been in the flat the same amount of time, and his bill was half the price. And I kind of weren't very happy about it. And I said to him, well, I haven't got a problem with paying for it, but I want to know how come you understand that I owe you this amount of money. Today I've received a bill, it's now over £700. They're not getting anything. Anyway, it doesn't matter, they won't ever get in. But
one of the things they are doing at the moment, particularly the water companies, is they're fast tracking it straight to court. Well, not so much to court, to a fake court. And the thing to remember there is it's a fake court. Any order they give out, liability or whatever, it's not worth the paper it's written on.
so should I go to court?
You won't be able to. It'll be at Northampton Bulk Clearing Centre where there are no judges, no magistrates and nobody trained in law.
Right, okay.
It's a private paper shuffling house that the council's pay money to be members of. You can't issue a summons from that court because you're not in the club, mate.
So the best thing for me to do is do what you've just basically done, innit?
Yeah.
They come in, they can't get in. So I've asked them to fit a meter.
No, I wouldn't have one of them. I wouldn't have one of them.
They can't fit a meter into a tower block because of the water pressures. It's quite clever, really. You know what I mean? So they can't never get anything from me. But I'm thinking maybe I should go to court.
Well, what I would do, I would ask it to be at your local court. That'll slow things down for a start, because they don't want it in front of a judge or a magistrate. And if you've done this process, imagine getting your notice out saying where you said, I've offered to pay, here's the payment, if you don't accept it, return the bank gyro credit slip and the promissory note to me and we'll come to some other agreement. Now, that, if the judge really says, well, he said he's offered to pay, and he said, if you don't want to pay, return them, and he'll come to another agreement. I think he's pretty much covered everything he could have done. He's tried to settle the debt. And of course, they don't return any of the promissory notes or bank gyro credit slips because they cash them. And this is why they don't return them. Plus, under the Bills of Exchange Act 1882, section 43, it quite clearly states, once payment is offered, if it's rejected, the bill is paid. I've offered them payment. If they present it back to me rejecting it, it's gone. And if it goes to court, I've offered them payment, and I even said if you don't accept it, return it. I've covered them.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of did as well. I offered them some sort of payment, but I needed to know the proof of what I was paying. But now the bill's come out here in black and white. It's now we're out for the full score.
I think ours is something like about £125 either a year or every 6 months, and that's a house.
Yeah, well, I'm in a one-bedroom flat. It ain't posh, believe me. So I live there by myself.
The thing they rely on is fear. Most people see a solicitor letter, they go into fear mode. They see a court document, they go into fear mode. That's exactly where they want you, because you're easy to control when you're in fear mode. This is what 9/11, 7/7 was all about, keeping us in fear. And one of the things I hope doesn't come off, but apparently they do have plans for some sort of event going off during the Olympics.
Can they ever actually force entry into the house?
Not with a fraudulent warrant.
Right, and who are the people who can actually have a real warrant? Is it only the police?
No, a court bailiff. Now, a lot of these private bailiffs will say the court bailiffs. If they do, and you know that they're a court bailiff, like Equita, the private bailiff, I know they're private bailiffs, if they ever said, and I always take a camera to the door and film everything, not that they've ever turned up, but I'd have it there anyway, and if they ever intimated that they were a court bailiff, I would send a Form 4 complaint to their certificating office, and in every likelihood they'll get sacked. Breaking the law, impersonating a court bailiff.
Ceylon, can I just ask a question? I'll come to you next time. Can an agreement ever be a contract, or is it just not worth the paper it's written on?
Never be a contract.
No?
I've got letters here where they say, here we are, we're sending you a copy of the contract. As you can see, the agreement clearly states, we call it a contract and then call it agreement, trying to confuse you. An agreement's an agreement, it's never a contract. It needs 2 signatures, and it needs to be signed by both parties with full disclosure of everything to do with whatever that is, whether it's a loan, a mortgage, anything. They have to tell you that you're actually creating that money in the first place.
Yeah, getting back to the water charge, some councils, one I'll name here and shame them, called Lambeth, their water charge is included in the rent. Okay, so if you're going to claim benefit, they say, oh, well, you've got to pay for the water charge, that's not included in the benefit. And then if you don't pay that, they say, it's not a water charge, it's now rent. And if you don't pay that, we're going to evict you for non-payment of rent.
This is a thing that a lot of the councillors are twigging onto, and they are trying to do it all over the country at the moment. It's once one figures some method of screwing you, they'll spread it amongst themselves and they try and implement it all over the country at the same time. So that is one of the things they are trying to do. If it's not there at the moment, though, and they send you a notice saying they're going to include this, or whatever they send you saying they're going to include it, rebut it saying it's not being included. Any offer they make can be rebutted.
Okay, all right.
Now I'm just going to get onto a part that I know she's interested in. Last couple of weeks back I was doing a tour all over the country, Leicester, Wigan, Liverpool, South Wales. And on the tour I was speaking to some very interesting people. And one of my friends was explaining how he doesn't get any council tax demands anymore. And they removed his name from the voters register. All he did was something very simple but very effective. He simply wrote letters to both of them stating, you've sent me a letter, bill, demand, usually it's a demand with the council tax, in this name. I can't guarantee that that's me. As it says clearly on the birth certificate, not to be used as identification. And we all know that the name is just hearsay and it cannot be proven. However, if you want me to act as the name and possibly commit fraud, which I don't want to do, but if you want me to, I will, as long as you take full liability for it. They're screwed. You've told them, you might be committing fraud, and I don't want to do that, but if you take liability, I will. And he doesn't even get council tax demands anymore. And they removed his name from the voters register. And that's something he's used in court as well. With mixing success, one lad was winning, then lost his bottle and started to deal with them. When he's done it, he's far more forceful and he won't back down. He'll tell, look, it's not to be used. It says that, look, here it is, it says it on the document. And then, of course, if they continue to push, he then goes to the formal, who are you? Well, I'm the judge, I'm Judge John Hopkins. Can you prove that? He can't. Can't prove it. He can get out his driving licence, that's not proof. Doesn't prove anything. That means you've got a picture which looks like you, with a name which is similar to yours, except it's all in capitals, and therefore can't possibly be you, because an all capital name means that you're referring to me as a slave. That's what Capitis Dimitio Maxima means. If your name's in all capital, they're referring to you as a slave. Maximum loss of benefits. And basically, you're a slave.
Very good information, I'd like to say. Could you tell us?
Where's the mic?
Yeah.
Just for the video, mate. Sorry.
Yeah, I'd just like to say it's very good information and I'm taking lots of notes. So, can you tell us about some of the implications or things we need to watch out for in terms of the stuff that you're doing? So, for example, you talked about your friend or someone you know who's been removed of the voters roll. So maybe one of the side effects of that could be that he now may be difficult for him to get a mobile phone contract or broadband. So can you tell us about some of the effects or side effects that we need to watch out for when doing this stuff?
Pitfalls.
I've got two.
Pitfalls, yeah.
I've got three actually, but I've got two full like this of things I've dealt with. I don't have a mobile phone contract, I pay as you go, but I've got internet, I've got everything else that everybody else has, but I don't want any credit. And one of the things, it's good that if you're not on the voters register, one of the things that's been pointed out on Get Out of Debt recently is that rather than sending letters back, you get a letter from someone, no contract return to sender. What that basically says, and excuse the French, it says, I'm not dealing with you, not contracting with you. One of the methods that's been pointed out to be more beneficial, but for this you have to be off the voters register, is simply returning addressee not recognised, return to sender. Because what you're saying then, oh, you've got this name, but it's in all capitals. Well, I know my name's not all capitals, so that's not me. I don't recognise that, return to sender. And I have two phones. One I leave at home, it's a Skype phone, and I actually got a call from the company. And I speak to him and he says, yeah? And he goes, oh, it's about your contract. I'm not on contract. Oh, right. Who is it? He goes, don't give details like that out of the phone. Okay, we'll remove your number then. And they removed it from the register. And that works with the letters as well. For a start, if you do that and you're on the voters register, they'll simply go and check the voters register and they'll find out that you're there and you'll get a letter saying, we have confirmed this is your address. I've got loads of them actually. The only problem is I moved about 3 months ago. So they still get the I confirm that this is your address letter.
Yeah, hello there, can you hear me all right? Yeah, recently, I moved a year ago, me and my wife, and when the voters registered came round in about October, November, I never filled them in, dumped them, and they knocked at the door, and I just said, go away. Now, on November the 5th last year, when I was at the BCG meeting, Veronica Chapman was there. And Veronica turned around and said that if you didn't fill in your voters register, which we didn't, then we won't get a bill for council tax this year. So I'm just wondering, do you know about that, please?
Possibly. That could be why my friend doesn't get council tax demands. He assumed it was because what he did with the name, because that was a year ago, and he did both at the same time, and they stopped harassing him about the council tax and haven't sent him anything since, and they took him off the voters register as well. It's always good to be off the voters register. When they came to our house last year, and they'd been the previous year, and they knew that they had a little bit of a chat with us, this time they didn't even knock on the door, they just posted it through the letterbox, and I see that, don't I? Hey, we don't want none of your rubbish here. Okay, they remembered us all right. But you've got to remember, they're just doing a job. It's not them, it's the system that's corrupt. They think everything's working fine. Anything else? Oh, this one. Just a second. This one. I was going to give you this.
Is there any difference if you're the owner of a property or just a private tenant? Is there any difference between...
In what way?
You can't do? Say if you want to refuse to... Well, say if you not want to pay your council tax, does it just come back to the property owner?
As far as I understand, yes, it does.
And with like bailiffs, if you're not the owner of the property, do you have the right to refuse entry even though it's not your private property?
Generally what happens is they tend to deal with whoever is occupying, term used to basically state that you're a foreign army in some foreign territory illegally occupying it, and they refer to you as the occupier. Usually they will continue at the occupier. If you move out, then things can get tricky and it could eventually get back to the landlord. Just a second, we got...
I was going to say...
Don't you say me.
A lot of it's in the contract, because I've got a house. In the contract, it actually says that the tenant is responsible for the council tax.
But it may say that, but it's not lawfully binding.
Okay. Now, the other thing I was going to ask you was, what was the benefit of you putting your car in the name of Family Trust?
Well, originally we got a letter from the bailiffs thinking that they were going to get somebody to pay. So I called him up and asked him who he wanted to speak to, which person he wanted to speak to. He says, oh, whoever it says on the letter. Oh, it says Ceylon Family Trust. Oh. Well, who was driving? Don't know. Well, who's going to pay? No one. Okay, I'll make a note. Bye. That was the last I heard, and then it changed back to bailiff manager. All their hands are going up left, right, and just behind, back there. Yeah, that one.
Sorry, I'll be quick. There's a very good book I just want to mention called Bailiff Law by a chap called John Cruise. He's written a new one. It's about 15, 16 quid. Very good, very helpful. So it's all worth you looking into that and buying up off the net weather.
Yeah, there are also some very good sites out there which also explain all this type of information as well. Well worth you looking at, just so you're ready in case it ever does happen, because they rely on the fact that you don't know what you're talking about. And if you even look like you don't know what you're talking about, they'll tell you all sorts of swear words to get you to think that they have some sort of authority over you. They have no authority over you and only have the power that you give them.
DVLA, do they register the keeper and the owner? Do they keep both their information? Or have you made the trust? Because I don't want to go there with the res and all that, but what I'm saying is, have you made the trust the registered keeper?
The trust is the registered keeper.
Because the thing is, even if you're the registered keeper, if they came to take the car, you could still say, yeah, I'm the keeper, I'm not the owner.
Exactly.
So,
none of us are owners.
No, but once they're aware of that fact, they shouldn't really take the car, should they? Because it's not the property of the keeper.
Here's something that a lot may not know. It's in their standard, not so much rules, but sort of like a code, where they should never knowingly take any item which they believe is more valuable than the debt they're chasing. Now, if you've got a 2-3 grand car and they're chasing 100 quid debt, of course they rely on your stupidity or ignorance not to know that. And once you do know that, you can simply point that out to them, and that would be a cause to make a form for complaint at his certificating office. a certificate in court, and he would find himself in trouble because you have the education and know that they're not allowed to do that.
Does that apply to Inland Revenue Bailiffs, do you know?
Inland Revenue Bailiffs think they're a law to themselves. The Bill of Rights, the Bill of Rights Act absolutely applies to them, but they clearly just quite say it doesn't apply to us. We're above the law, apparently. That's what they say. This is what people who've been dealing with them have found. They just think they're above the law, even though they're not. Any more questions from the lady on the left?
I think it's about time for a break now.
One more question.
Oh, sir. One more.
I just wanted to know, if you take yourself off the voters register, does that affect you getting a passport and stuff like that?
No. Michael Benissy up in Newcastle, he didn't even register his child. She's about 2 years old now and she's got a passport. So she's not only not on the voters register, she's not even registered. So it's time for a quick break, time to get a beer, and probably for those that still have to do that disgusting habit, probably have a fag. I don't, I never have, so I'm allowed to judge.
Okay, see you back in 20 minutes, folks.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Cheers.